So from like 1880 to maybe 1910, these snake oil type get rich fast land developers were going out to the Dust Bowl and purchasing hundreds of acres of land. When they got to the land, before purchasing, they knew immediately. They were like, there's no water here. How would a town be able to survive? Oh well, I'm buying it anyway. It's cheap and I don't care what happens after I leave. Cheap or sometimes free. Now, if you've ever been caught in a meeting with a timeshare salesman, this might sound familiar, but they would provide free train tickets from major cities out to this land that they purchase. And once you got there, they would have this picturesque Disney type set on display for the smoke and mirrors of how great this town is going to be. Now, again, if you purchased a plot of land with a loan anywhere from 1880 to probably 1910, you were going to be able to pay it off. The wheat boom during World War I was very profitable, and many farmers got very wealthy off of this. There was one woman who was making as much money as Babe Ruth yearly. But if you bought your farm during World War I, during the wheat boom, these wheat prices did not hold up after the war. And these are the people who were defaulting on their loans when the stock market crashed. Now, when the stock market crashed in 29, the whole nation slowly descended into hunger, except for people in the Dust Bowl. And this is because the drought didn't hit until 1932. So from 1929 to 1932, we were still producing wheat at a wartime capacity. But after 29, the dollar really had no value, and therefore nobody could afford to ship the wheat out from the Dust Bowl into these cities. Years worth of wheat was sat on a platform in every train station where it typically would have been shipped out. Literally sat there. Silos were completely full. Families in the Dust Bowl were like, I guess we're having wheat product for every single meal. There were people burning wheat and corn in the Dust Bowl because it had more value as a fire source than it did for food. The drought, of course, changed all of that because not only were we not able to produce wheat at a wartime capacity, farmers weren't able to produce almost any wheat. Now, when people started to default on their loans, these foreclosures were being overseen by the local judge. And this was miserable for the local judge because he knew these people personally. These were small towns, small counties. So he was having to take the homes and property of his neighbors and his personal friends. This actually became extremely dangerous for these judges. Eventually, the farmers unofficially kind of unionized, and many times this became violent for the judges, where the farmers would literally kidnap them and threaten their lives. There were several instances where their lives were almost taken. And honestly, the sheriffs during this time were really not on the side of the judge either. The police force was very different back then. It was not as militarized. When I say sheriff, I'm talking one guy, maybe two, maybe three. And again, these are all his friends and neighbors. The sheriff was also miserable going to work every day, watching this happen. Now, when these judges took these properties, they would go to auction. And one of the other ways the farmers fought with an unofficial union was to go, okay, then we're going to go to the auction and refuse to bid anything more than a dime on all of these properties. And it worked. For about 6 months, it worked. Farmers were buying back their neighbor's property for a dime and handing it back to the original owner. And the judge couldn't say anything because technically that's a legal sale. Eventually, though, new regulations were passed and these loopholes that the farmers found were closed.